Hello and welcome to another episode of the BigTime Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Miles Clifton. And today we got a great episode for you guys. We've got Coach Zach Fears from Southeastern Oklahoma State University. And he's going to tell us a little bit about his program today. But before we get started with that, guys, we would like to highlight our awesome sponsors. So the first sponsor we have is TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr is a leading software company for high school and colleges, providing coaches with the ability to write programs online, generate over 13 reports, and even train athletes remotely for side income. Right now, if you sign up with the code BigTime, you will receive a free APRE programming template, which works automatically within TeamBuildr. No more spreadsheets and workout cards to track training maxes that change day by day. Automate your programming without outsourcing your programming with TeamBuildr. And our next sponsor is PowerLift. PowerLift is the leading manufacturer and distributor of heavy-duty strength training equipment for colleges and high schools around the world. PowerLift brings over 20 years of experience to the strength and conditioning world. All of their products are manufactured in their state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Jefferson, Iowa, and they are proud to support all coaches making the big time where they are at. Guys, if you would like to check out more from TeamBuildr and PowerLift, we will have more information for them in the show notes. So please go check them out. They're both awesome companies, and they've been supporting us for a long time here, and we really appreciate everything they do for us and for coaches everywhere. Like I said, let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Coach Fears, I'm going to let you kind of kick things off by just telling us, a little bit of your background and how you got where you're at.
Yeah, so I'm actually an Iowa native. So I went to Central College. That's actually where I got turned on to strength conditioning. Name you don't hear as much now, but a lot of us Central guys, and we're kind of still all over the place, came, from Jake Anderson. We're all Jake Anderson proteges. He was at Central for about 10 or 11 years, whatever it was, somewhere around there. And honestly, I went there with the intent to be a personal trainer. Wanted to play football, did not end up playing football there. So I get the question 24/7, what position do you play in football? I didn't play football. I actually weightlifted throughout college. Instead, I kind of got into that a little bit. But Jake Anderson got a bunch of us going into it. That's where I got my initial start. And I remember I was like getting into it. And I remember I wanted to do personal training, and I did some personal training with some like 60-year-old ladies. And it wasn't their fault, but I was like, this is terrible. And I was like, I'm kind of too deep to back out now. So I'm trying to figure out what I could do with it. And what I ended up doing was saying, hey, I could work with athletes. It'd be a little bit of fun. It would help broaden my experience so I could work with other people, make more money. And I remember my first couple of days, I hated it. I hated it. And there are a few reasons, just certain people. But then all of a sudden, like a week or two in, and I was like, okay, it's kind of fun. And I'm fairly good at it right away. I get this stuff pretty quick and it clicks. And then by the end of the semester, that's when I had one of our, head interns came up to me. He's like, man, if you want to do this, you need to stay over the summer and get caught up because you're behind. And I was just sitting there. I was like, man, I can't do that. There's no way. I can't afford it. Lo and behold, I ended up being able to work all of May. And they basically came up to me, and the economy was kind of hitting a bad spot right then. So I worked as a mechanic throughout college with my dad, and they actually said, hey, we're too slow. We're going to have to lay you off for the summer. And it ended up being kind of a perfect segue to me being like, all right, I'm going to do this all summer. Saved up enough money barely to survive the summer. I was living in a basement, literally with spray paint on the wall. It was fun. I had like a graffiti room. It was bright green with all this black and silver graffiti all over it. I think I paid like $200 a month or something. It was probably too much. But that's where I really got my start. And then from there, and I think if anybody asks about Jake Anderson, I think we all kind of got the bug from him. He was just a very motivational guy. And I think, Central College lost a lot when he left. But from there, I actually stayed in Pella. I ran a private business for Travis Sterling for a year, which he does. He has a really good PT clinic there. That's actually, he just sold. He's actually moved down to Texas, but I think he's been there for 20 plus years. And I was working for him as the basically in-house strength coach. And honestly, I just didn't enjoy the private sector. So I decided I was going to get back into college, looked around, ended up going to NC State football, interning for a while. After being there for about 6 months, kind of getting some experience, which honestly it was a great experience. Other than just my savings was gone by the time I was done there. It was just rough. It's expensive and a few other things, but I did learn a lot. Todd Rice was the director when I was there. Craig Buckley and Antonio Burnett were the assistants. Currently, Craig is at Bryant University and D'Antonio is actually the director at NC State. He's killing it. I mean, that is very motivational. He's putting out great stuff in the field. But from there, I did my GA at Winona State for 2 years. It was a big shock to get there. It was just no regulation. I just got there and I could do whatever I wanted. We had there, it's a fitness center. It's not a weight room. So, and Central College is the same way, but there was just, hey, you take care of these teams. All right. That's it. And there was just no staff development or nothing like that. So it was different in its own way. And it kind of shocked me to come from very regimented type stuff to, okay, just take care of business. And then I went to Abilene Christian for about 1.5 years. And it was kind of the opposite. We were very, very strict. We had a lot of reading and it was very tight as far as requirements. You had to do everything, very specifically. From there, I went to Missouri Southern for about 3 years, and then it flip-flopped again. Troy Jorgensen was the director there. He's actually he's now a salesman with Samson, and still a good friend of mine. We talk often, but he was the opposite. We really didn't do much staff development. It was another, hey, you're free to do whatever you want. And again, it kind of 180, but it was kind of nice at that point. I was getting a little bit more comfortable. I knew I was getting closer to a head position somewhere, and that was probably. It was good. It was one of the things was I knew I was ready to take a head position, and I just kept getting interview after interview after interview. And it's something or another. And I just kept missing out on head jobs by one position, stuff like that. And it started to get frustrating. Finally, I got recommended for a job at Lincoln University. I was there for 2 years. That was my first head job. And it was weird. I had no staff help. The whole time I was there, I could not keep interns. I could not keep anyone. I had a couple interns that did a great job for me, but it was a semester by semester basis. No one wanted to be there. Weight room was mediocre. And after 2 years, I just knew that getting staff wasn't going to happen. I ended up getting my first GA on my very last day, actually. So it was kind of comical like that. But I learned a lot. First chance to get in, work as a head, and do the things you want to do, and understand coaches better, and you understand the administrative side a little bit more. Then I left there exactly 2 years to the day to come where I'm at now at Southeastern Oklahoma State University. Honestly, it's kind of funny. I don't tell the story too often, but it's amusing. Troy Jorgensen was my old boss. He came down and talked to our athletic director. They were trying to redo a room. And he said, hey, I got a guy for you. And he recommended me, and he's like, hey, he's putting a resume in for you. And he calls me, he's like, hey, trying to get this room. You want to throw a resume in? I think you do really well there. And I was like, actually, I kind of got some stuff in the works. I really don't want to do anything. He's like, well, I kind of told him, why don't you help me out here? I'm like, sure. So the job I'm currently at, I really didn't have any intention of taking. What ended up happening was I put the resume in, and as bad as it sounds, and maybe when boss will hear this and get a good chuckle out of it, but I took a former resume and I just changed from everything to Southeastern Oklahoma State University, and I turned it in. And I didn't change anything on my cover letter, everything. It was literally just change the school. There was no, I'm a person, when I look at a job, I want to make sure it's specific. I want to make sure everything's right for that school, make sure it's the right fit and everything. And this was just kind of a joke. Help a guy out, and then ended up talking to AD, and I really liked what he had to say, and ended up, long story short, I ended up down here. It was kind of one of those weird things because it was kind of a tragedy. The day I was supposed to interview, at 8 a.m. It was, I'm trying to remember if it was Christmas break, at the very start of Christmas break, so maybe early December, and I got a call at like 11 o'clock the night before. My sister-in-law passed away, kind of unexpected. So there's a little bit of a tragedy there, but I lived with my brother and my sister-in-law during summers a lot. I stayed with them more than I stayed at my own house. And so it was kind of it was a rough go there, and I was emotionally pretty messed up. And I've got an interview in 9 hours, and so I just said, I wasn't going to do it. And finally, I just, what, I'll stick through it. And I don't remember a single thing about the interview, honestly. I just went on autopilot and did the interview, and we're driving up there a couple of days later, and my current boss Keith calls me and he goes, "Hey, how do you feel about everything? How do you feel about coming down here?" And I told him the whole situation. I'm like, "Hey, and I told him first thing on the interview, I'm like, "Hey, I apologize. I didn't sleep much last night. I lost my sister-in-law. Like, we understand. Just do the best you can." Well, anyways, a couple of days later, he calls me and said, "Hey, I'd really like to get you down here. Oh, just so you know that I'm up in Minnesota right now with my brother. We've got to take care of family stuff." He goes, "Well, yeah, I don't want to complicate anything, but I'm offering you the job." So I'm like, "Oh, that's not complicated." And I just flat out told him, like, "Hey, I won't accept a job without going and looking at facilities, talking to coaches, and getting to understand things. So I'll let you know what my next move is." And I'm an antsy person. I don't like to sit still. This interview's long enough for me to sit still. For this Zoom is long enough for me to sit still in one spot. But I remember we went up there, stayed a couple nights. There's not much you can do, unfortunately. The family room passes the night. I remember rented a car, drove up there, drove back. I slept for like 6 hours. I'm like, I'm going down. So I went over, rented another car, drove my 7 or 8 hours down here, and stayed 2 nights, and then came back. And I remember it was kind of funny. I just kept going back and forth. I got an 8-hour trip. I got up like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and came back. And I just kept remember flip-flopping my answer, like, "No, I can't take this job. Yes, I'm going to take this job." And, my wife is the, most passive individual ever. So that's why we work. She just was like, "You tell me." All right. You didn't get to go down there and look at the place. So got the chance. And I said, I think my time at Lincoln's runs course. It's a tough school to work at. It's resources are limited. Takes a long time to get stuff done. I knew I wasn't going to get a better facility. I knew my title wasn't going to change. There was really just no chance for advancement. So I ended up taking the job here. And during that time, we got to build a brand new facility. I mean, we've got a killer Division II facility. Right now, I've got basically 3 full-time working under me. And then I've got right about a dozen interns that work and do a great job. So that was something that I could never develop at the last school I was at. So that's kind of the important thing. That's long story, my journey of how I got here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's funny. I swear about half of the coaches that we interview on here are Jake Anderson guys from Central. Like I swear, like I don't even get surprised anymore whenever I'm looking, researching, and pull up somebody's title on their website, and the first thing you see is Central undergrad, sometime in the 2000s, like working with Jake. So he's pumped a lot of guys into the field. A lot of guys do a really great job. So yeah, that's a name that we hear a lot. But no, that's a cool journey. Like I said, sometimes things just kind of fall in your lap, and if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And sounds like you got a pretty good thing there, now at Southeastern now. So that's awesome. Kind of get going here a little bit. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about, kind of the mission statement of your department, your core values, like what are the things that make you and your program tick?
Yeah. So I think all of our philosophies are really, really similar, like 3-dimensional, ground-based, multi-joint, yada, yada, yada. I think that's the thing that almost everyone has the same thing. It's all bunched in, plyometrics, all that stuff. The one thing that makes mine different, in my opinion, is our number one philosophy is, whatever you want to say, servant leadership. We will serve our athletes. That is a goal. We are here to take care of our athletes, not the other way around. So when I talk about that, one thing that's intrigued me more than anything, X's and O's of strength and conditioning anymore, is leadership. I'm doing my doctorate in it right now, actually, about halfway through it's called a DSL, Doctorate of Strategic Leadership. And the thing that's changed my thought process is, we don't go to win anymore. That's not my goal. My goal isn't to go and win. My goal is to create leaders, to create buy-in, to serve our athletes, and that will result in wins. So, I had an athlete 2 or 3 days ago, and he says, "Coach, you know what I really like about you? Like, what's up? And this is a kid I've had run-ins with. You know, like, hey, I'm not going to be the soft guy in the weight room. I'm always going to have a louder voice. And I naturally have a nice loud voice, so it works. And he goes, I really feel like you care more than anyone else. And I was like, thank you. Like, I really appreciate that. And especially from a kid, you know, we've had our disagreements, we've had our run-ins. You know, I always make sure if I ever run in with a kid, I always make amends pretty quick. Before that session is over, I'm talking to that kid. You know, I think I said this just yesterday to one of my staff members, but, you know, we have an issue with them. You know, we get into a little, you know, I'm not always a nice guy. I tend to be, you know, a lot more slow to anger than I used to be. My temper's not near as bad as it is. I think a lot of that has to do with this leadership of calm down and, you know, treat people a little bit better. But go and explain exactly what went on, exactly why it happened. And then basically it's going to happen again if your behavior doesn't change, you know? So that's my simple rules. I'm always going to make sure. And if, you know, I've had a kid a couple of weeks ago, not last week, the week before, where I was like, hey, just so you know, right now I've had a lot of guys saying bad things about your work ethic, your body language, and you're really messing with that position group. And I was like, and I'm going to jump you about it every chance I get until you fix that, because our guys don't think you're upholding their expectations for the position group. So I take all of our football guys, every single group we have expectations, and I let those guys decide what's the most important thing. If they don't uphold those standards, usually we have between 3 to 5 goals and standards that everyone has. And if they do not uphold that, I get on them about it. And that's one thing, you know, our football staff lets me do a lot of leadership stuff, motivational stuff. You know, our football coach is about as passive as you will ever find. I mean, he really is. He's a very chill guy. And when it really comes down to it, I think if we're letting that stuff get by, then we're hurting that position group. We're taking a position group, you know, that struggled in the past, and they're doing phenomenal right now. Attitude, effort, focus, film, practice, and they're locked down doing great. We got one guy that's not meeting the standards. And I flat out said, I'm going to get on you at the exact same time next lifting session if your body language and your effort doesn't change. And I know this is not just happening here, it's out on the field too. And so that's the type of things that I think make, obviously, the servant leadership mentality of like, we're here to take care of them, not for them to go work for us. You know, that's a big thing for me. And I think my staff does a great job of doing that. We, you know, I'm not saying we bend over backwards, but we do cater to needs. You know, if a kid has an injury, I'm not dumb enough to sit there and say, no, fight through it. No, we're going to take care of it. We're going to work with our students. You know, and even honestly, that goes to the rest of the staff as well, not just strength conditioning and sport performance, but to, you know, our administration, to athletic training, to the coaches. You know, we're here to help them out, take care of them the same way that hopefully they're there to help us out. Got a pretty good symbiotic relationship right now, so I don't have a lot of, you know, there's not, you know, any hate any direction. Pretty seamless right now.
Yep. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, especially in this position, right? You know, strength coaches should be kind of in the background, and that servant-hearted leadership thing really resonates with me. You know, be in the background working for your guys and not trying to make a show of yourself and drawing attention to you and what you're doing for the athletes, but how can you serve them better? That's great. I love that. So you talked a little bit there about, you know, position groups establishing standards and, you know, you upholding them. Obviously, modeling servant-hearted leadership is one of the best things you can do to try to instill it in your guys. But is there anything else that you're doing from maybe a curriculum standpoint, just anything that you're doing to make a concerted effort to actually teach leadership skills and leadership qualities to your athletes?
Yeah. So if you talk about, I know you asked about, you know, some books and stuff like that I'll get to later, but obviously I've already mentioned doing my doctorate. I actually utilize a lot of that stuff in there. I usually do it at the beginning of lifting sessions, and I try to make it, you know, 2 or 3 minute sessions. So we've actually been going over Leading Change by Cotter. And it's Cotter's 8 steps for organizational change. The good thing about organizations is it can be defined anything from position group all the way up to Microsoft, you know, giant, you know, Fortune 500 companies, all the way down to 5-man teams, you know, 4-man teams. That's one thing we try to put in stuff like that. I've been utilizing those 8 steps. We're on somewhere around 4 to 5 right now. We probably won't even get through all 8, because in order to get through 8, we have to actually be vastly successful. And then we have to repeat that. So that may take more than a year or 2 to go through. And how do I do that? We're doing exactly what I just said with our expectations, our goals. We have, every single day, it's a 2 or 3 minute speech about moving forward. How do we get better from where we're at? Sometimes it's repeated a few times before we start to see progress. Sometimes it's repeated a lot more than a few times. Leading into the summer, we had this one really, really big focus was getting people on board with what we're trying to do, and getting people to start leading. And honestly, we saw a big change in leadership happen this summer. We didn't have a huge amount of guys here this summer. With the COVID, it caused a lot of issues with housing for us. Well, what we did see was a lot of really good leaders were there, because they really honestly bent over backwards to get here. And what that allowed me to do was hone them in as good leaders. And so that allowed me to find a little bit more hidden leaders and develop them to stand out and talk more. And what I found is, I hate to say this, because probably one of the closest athletes I have is our starting quarterback. He's not soft. He works hard. He's about close to 500 pounds of water. So he can move some weight. He's a decent cleaner, that type of stuff. So he's not a baby about one to lift, even though we do run a pocket style. He's not I'm just sit in the back and do extra rotations and complain about squatting and stuff like that. He's a good kid overall. But we saw him actually drop down as not probably our primary offensive leader. We have a receiver that stepped up and did a better job, in my opinion. Just being more positive, better leader, natural leader. A little bit younger, but he's still a starter, and he's been doing a phenomenal job for us. And then we've had a few other guys step up in position groups that were not leading before, and make sure that the expectations are being upheld. And we have a checklist every day in film. So when everything's done, they go over it real quick. They talk about it. Do we meet these 3 to 5 expectations? And I think that's one of the biggest things. Every single day, it's a yes or no. And that's all they are. They're very simple yes or no questions. And it can be anywhere from our quarterbacks, not throwing interceptions that day, no fumbles for the running backs, so on and so forth. And we have both game and practice expectations. And they're very, very simple. Again, most groups have 4 or 5. There's a couple that only have 3. But again, you talk about our O-line, no sacks allowed, that type of stuff. And it's yes or no. We have sacks allowed, yes or no. And so at the end of the day, you got a 3 out of 5, a 4 out of 5, a 5 out of 5. And usually it's a very strange correlation. When you start getting those 5 out of 5s, those are starters consistently. And when you start doing those 5 out of 5s or 4 out of 4s on game day, we're winning. So I don't think it's luck, but that's one of those things. I really do like the book. It's a very simple read, but Leading Change by Cotter. It's got 8 steps. And there's a few other very similar ones that might be a little bit more fitting. The one thing I like about Cotter's 8 steps is they're not necessarily sequential. So you don't have to necessarily get through step 1 before you go to step 2. A lot of times you'll be doing step 1, 2, and 3 at the same time. There's even examples where you might be doing 4 different projects, and you're on step 1 here, and step 5 here, and step 8 over here. But the whole idea is to never end the change. The whole idea is that change will never stop. It's got to be evolving. Anywhere from obviously strength and conditioning, we're getting more and more technologically advanced. Our methods are changing drastically. We're all over the place, but we keep evolving. We're evolving really, really fast right now. It's not very old field. But what we do see is the methods have to keep changing. We have to keep finding better and better things. And if we're all just stuck in one program, yeah, it might be good for a couple of years, but eventually that program might not be the best for the athletes that we have right now. And keep adapting to who we have, what we have, the systems we run. Sorry, but if our offensive coordinator tomorrow said, hey, we're going to switch over to triple option, well, probably going to have to change up my program to suit that, not just say, we're going to keep it the same old, and keep going this way. No, I got to keep adapting and keep changing. That's the goal with our athletes. We're going to lose our seniors this year. So we have to adapt and grow new leaders next year. How can we start that right now so we don't end up in trouble in January and February?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's got to be a continual process, right? The people who fail to change and evolve are the ones that get left behind. So No, that's great. And that's definitely something that we want to make sure we're instilling in our athletes and kind of teaching them how that can correlate to what they're doing on the field and in the real world. Right. And I think at the end of the day, that's kind of what we're all after. We want them to be winners on the field, but we want them to be successful whenever they're done with their 4 years, in college and move on into the rest of their lives. So that's great. Let's kind of change things up here a little bit, I guess, and talk about, weight room logistics and some of the stuff that you guys are doing in there. What are some of your kind of go-to resources, whether it be technology, systems that you have in place, whatever that you're doing to kind of optimize the training process for your athletes in the weight room?
Yep. So, there's this really, really awesome program. You've probably heard of it. It's called TeamBuildr.
Absolutely.
TeamBuildr, #1 strength conditioning software, high school and colleges. No, TeamBuildr saved us a lot through COVID and everything, because you can't just constantly send out programs. Sorry, but if you hand them out, guys lose them like crazy. Sorry. And then you get an email, hey, can you send me this? Yeah, okay, let me redo everything and create an individual file for you. And yeah, it's my job, but it comes with a giant pain. So I think when I was at Missouri Southern, we got TeamBuildr like 2015, 2014. We were rolling with it back. It was like $200 a year subscription. So back when they didn't have a lot of million maxes, it's like you put your back squat max in, your front squat max in, your step up max, your RDL max, everything. Like there was no, hey, use a percentage of this, so on and so forth. So Troy Jorgensen got me on that a few years ago, and I was kind of like skeptical at first, but hey, they got rid of pen and paper, which is nice. But then that's one that I'm gonna shout out every single time, because sorry, but I think I pay $1,200 a month, or sorry, $1,200 a year. You can't really beat that. I mean, for a resource of what you get, I mean, it's killer. I can text all my athletes, I can send things out, I can send nutrition packets out. Obviously, all the other stuff you said, like, that's a killer. We also are completely equipped with VBTs. I'm a big VBT guy. I would say half of the year we do, if not more, we do VBT stuff with our teams. And I'm fortunate enough, Brian Mann, I've got to sit down and talk to him a handful of times about it. When I was at Lincoln, we were only 25 minutes from Mizzou, back when he was at Mizzou. So I had an opportunity to sit down and talk to him when he was a professor there. And that was nice to be able to learn. And obviously, the best strength coach is the best thief, in all honesty. We're the best when it's stealing other people's methods. So I've taken it and kind of ran with some of the things he's written about, changed a few things on my own. I do a ton of adjusted sets based off velocity. That's basically half of our year. And I think that's one that makes it a little bit different. I have these charts that I utilize. I've never found another one. So we did trial and error. We found basically for if we have a goal speed for the day, and that's typically how we periodize in the season, that allows us to accommodate an athlete that plays 60 snaps and an athlete that plays 1 snap. So we do a lot of adjusted weights, or what do you want to call that? But I found that very randomly, it's for every 0.05 meters per second, a 2% increase. It's really, really close to where we want to be. So we basically have a big wall of charts, and we put them out on our pulling blocks every single time we use them. And it basically is just, we have all the way from a 0.25 all the way to a 1.5 meters per second, which obviously is basically plyometric speed. But we utilize those at different times. That's how we do our periodization with most of our in-season teams. Some of our smaller teams that are not quite ready for that, no, we don't do it that way, but most of our teams do a ton of VBT. So we use VTruth, pairs up with the iPad nicely, good technology, good battery life, very accurate. And then currently they're working with TeamBuildr actually to integrate the two technologies together. So I've kind of been on the board of that, helping a little bit, but we kind of came to a big stall with trying to figure some stuff out. So we'll see if that moves forward. I hope it does. But those are the two things we use. Obviously, we use G-Flights for more of our jumping training, if you want to call that. We don't do a ton with them. We do RSI on them. We do ground contact time. So a lot of times I've found that no matter what, and especially basketball guys, I want to jump to like the highest box. even if we're doing depth jumps, but their ground contact time is like a half a second. So G-Flights let us monitor a little bit better on those. We don't use those a ton, but we do use them sometimes. We do a lot of RSI with more of our jumping sports, basketball, volleyball. That allows us to make sure that obviously our athletes are quick off the ground. We understand the reactive time, obviously reactive strength index. That's some of the technology we use. I've been doing a lot more force velocity profiling with our athletes. It was really enlightening. So first time I ever tried this, I actually took and I probably overdid a little bit. We went all the way 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%. Got data on all that. And we put it in, and I did it with every single football player, which is 100 plus guys. That took way, way too long. But anyways, so we got done with that. And so finally, one of the football coaches says, how can we use this? I'm like, well, that's a great question. Hold on, let me tell you how your athletes are. Let me see if we can get this just off your data of your freshmen that I don't know that well, that I've never seen you play before. And so we basically went, and I said, and this is kind of a shot in the dark, honestly, a little bit. And in theory, it's there, but I said, basically, we're going to look at your speeds at, X percentage, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 90%. And we're going to talk about acceleration, kind of that mid-range speed and your top end speed. And I went through and I looked at about 10 of our freshmen on defense. And I said, I'm just going to guess that this guy is off and kind of slows down after that. This guy's good all the way around. And he was like, man, you nailed every one of those guys. I'm like, all right, so there is something to this technology. Obviously, it may not be the strongest guy that's the fastest guy. Obviously, we like to have strong athletes, but if the guy's really slow at 50%, he's probably not very fast on the top end. So that was a few things we started to find. I do like force velocity. It takes time. It's a lot better now that my staff is getting bigger and bigger. I can either have someone type it in for me or have them run something else while I'm typing because it does take time. Just in general, technology has been godsend and a terror at the same time. You got to get data put in. You got to interpret data. Sometimes you get data and you don't even know why you're using data. 90% of our athletes, when we did force velocity profiling on football last year, we didn't use any of those numbers. And our coaches looked at it and they're like, cool. What do we do with it? Like, well, logically, we want to see progression here. Sweet. But what's that mean? And it just turns into a whole snowball. Now I will say our football coaches are great. They let me do my job and everything. But the only thing I've ever been asked by our head football coach is, can we do power cleans? I'm like, yes, we'll do power cleans. That's not it. And the funniest thing is my training, I do Olympic lifting a ton. That's what I've done for years and years and years. And I don't do that much lifting with my athletes. Now, I don't think it's a bad movement. I just think there's other ways to get around it pretty quick, produce more power, easier progressions. But our football team, we do cleans, and a lot of our other teams, we might do Olympic variations, hang cleans, stuff like that. That's not to say they're bad movements. It's just to say that sometimes it's easier to produce force in other ways. So that's my technology and some of my philosophy.
Yeah, no, I love it. We've got just right before COVID, we got our first velocity-based training units. We just got 5 of those Rep 1 units. I don't know if you've seen any of Rep 1s. Yep. And, they're great. They don't give you as much information as you probably need if you're going to try to adjust load and do some of the stuff that you're talking about doing. But what I've found is, if nothing else, they're just a great tool for teaching athletes intent. Like, you can tell them to move the bar faster, but until they actually see a number to draw the correlation, oh, that's what coach meant when he said move it faster. I've found that it's been a great tool for us just to kind of be a teaching tool as much as anything. But yeah, I'd love to get to the point where we could hopefully start doing some adjusted loads and stuff like that, because it just makes so much sense to me, right? If percentage-based training can be really difficult, especially when you're in season, because there's so many things that you have to factor in, right, to their readiness for the day. And 90% one day may feel like 120% the next. So having tools at your disposal and finding ways to actually use them in a great way is awesome. So no, I love that. And obviously TeamBuildr, right, sponsor of the show. but yeah, I've never heard anybody have a bad thing to say about them, right? If they get the chance to actually use the software. I know it saves people a ton of time, and especially on the data collection side, right? If you're trying to create your own spreadsheets and manage all that data, it can really bog you down, especially if you're, small school and don't have a very big staff. So no, those are some great tools, and yeah, something you're starting to see more and more schools utilize. So that's awesome. I know, you've kind of touched on this a little bit, and you're obviously diving really heavy into the leadership stuff with your doctorate and everything. But is there anything else that you're, reading or learning about right now that you're really excited about and hoping to maybe implement in the next year or two?
Gosh, put me on the spot there though. Obviously there's a lot more leadership books that I probably, I would say 90% of my books I've purchased in the last year have been leadership. Now, I will admit something that I was kind of privy to. Fell into my lap. We just got a new pitching coach. He's a Tom House protege, and he's put some stuff on my plate that I've never seen before, as far as shoulder, elbow, arm health in general. So that's some stuff that kind of fell into my lap. It was really foreign to me. I was a little leery at first. But then actually seeing and going through some with myself, I actually went through one of the workouts, and it was not, I can go and squat 600 pounds, no problem. But doing all the body weight stuff for an hour, I was fried. My quads right now and my lower back are still just destroyed. But what I found is obviously keeping an open mind on this stuff, just because it's not what you've done in the past. Jake Anderson quote, "Don't believe everything you read, don't read everything you believe." And so some of that stuff, as far as even outside of leadership, I still got to be a strength coach. I'm definitely moving someday. I'm not saying tomorrow or even next year, but the goal is to move more into administration. And I'm kind of in that. It's kind of a weird situation right here. I'm technically not assistant athletic director, but I am assistant athletic director. It's kind of weird, right? So supposed to be soon that I actually get the title. So it is what it is. I'm not too worried about that right now. I'm just going to keep doing my job. But at the end of the day, I think keep modern stuff in, keep some new stuff in. Obviously, you got guys that are 40 years old playing at the highest level possible. I hate to drop Tom Brady in there, but something's going right if a guy can do this for that long. Keep finding some of that stuff. Yeah. I'm not going to sit there and regurgitate TB12 with my, baseball pitchers and quarterbacks, but at the same time, you know what, read some stuff. Yeah, I'm going to throw away 90% of it. There might be a jewel or two in there to find. I think that's hopefully that's a leadership mentality of, hey, everybody knows something you've done, and I don't care what it is. Sometimes it may not be much, but figure out what someone knows. And honestly, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but get a good relationship with your athletes. I don't care what it is. If you don't have a good relationship with your athletes, your coworkers, it's not going to go well. I always make sure, and I've already said this, but a couple of weeks ago, I had a little bit of communication issue with a coworker, actually coworkers, about not being told some things. And I went over there and I fumed a little bit. I need to be told this stuff. This is not something I can. I need this information to be effective at my job. And I find it a little ridiculous that I didn't get this. Of course, everyone's throwing, getting a little defensive about it. And, at the end of the day, I walked over and I was, look, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just telling you, I need to know this stuff. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to start a fight. I need to know the stuff if I want to do my job at the best level. And I think at the end of the day, that's our goal, is to do our job at our best level. Our current staff mission for this year is to have the best year athletically that Southeastern has ever had. And we're not going to have that without communication. We're not going to have that without everything we got going on. And I'm still trying to, I got to put that mission. I have to take our university mission and then our athletic mission and then our strength mission or sports performance mission and put those all together and make sure that my mission supports the athletic staff mission and then all the way to the university. And that's not easy to do. But yeah, there's another one. Know your university's mission statement, by the way. Know that. If you don't know that, you're probably not going to be very good at your job or supporting the university. But that's what I would say on that side. I know that's nothing revolutionary.
Sure. No, it's good though. So we've talked a lot about, kind of where you've been and where you're at with your program now, but, what's the future look like? What do you see moving forward in the next 5 years or so with your staff and with your department there?
So again, I always, I get this all the time. I think a lot of coaches do. This isn't like, hey, look at me type, but it's hey, you're going to get offered this job, or you're going to get offered something big. You're going to get offered, I always just, if it comes, it comes. It's kind of what's the next opportunity. And I really like to move in one of two directions, more towards administration, or honestly, ability to have a little bit more resources. And that would probably have to be a bigger school. And I never want to sit there and downplay. I love where I'm at. It would take a crazy job to get me out of here. And why? I have an amazing facility. I have a huge staff, and people take care of it. But at the end of the day, I think the more people, I don't want to this sounds so narcissistic, but the more people you're in charge of, the more people you can impact. And at the end of the day, I do have a pretty good impact with close to 400 student athletes, less on staff. And that's one thing I really like. That's, I'd love to be the next Springfield College for producing strength coaches. Right now we've got a good group. I got looking over, I have an intern scale on my wall. So it's just kind of a little joke thing. We have all of our interns, a picture of them. It's the most embarrassing picture I could find of them. Usually when they're like 14 years old or something on the wall, and they all just kind of get moved up and down kind of jokingly based off their performance. I keep it on the backside of the wall so no one can see except for me and my staff. But as I look over and, I got a good amount of people that I'm going to be putting in the field in the next few years. I think I want to keep going with that if I stay here. And I don't ever want to sit there and say, that's not what I'm saying at all. It's just that opportunities present themselves. I'd love to keep moving up here if possible ever. But I think long-term, I'd love to go be an athletic director in the next 5 or 10 years. I think it's something that I do well. I try to work well with people. I know I'm pretty honest about things. I like to keep getting better at evaluating and doing that, the true leadership stuff and understanding how to take care of the staff. I think that's, if you look around, and I'm not trying to hate on any programs, because you've talked to a lot of Division II programs, but it just kind of seems like a lot of times we're stuck trying to survive. And, I've got a killer setup, but at the same time, we lack things here too. We need better facilities in certain areas. And I probably got one of the best D2 facilities in the nation, and resources are pretty good for me overall. But I would like to keep moving that forward, and whether that be here or another Division II school or smaller Division I, I don't ever see myself, going and being Pat Ivy at Louisville or anything like that. I don't think that's what I want to do, but maybe someday if an option like that came open, I have an opportunity, I'd think about it. I just think long term, it's really about the opportunities that present themselves. You keep working, you get opportunities. You work hard, you do a good job, and all of a sudden someone name drops you to someone, and they just don't have someone in mind, and that's how you get opportunities. It's just work. You get make the big time where you're at.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great, Coach. Kind of one more thing here before we'll try to let you off the hook a little bit, and you kind of get on with your day here. But as strength coaches, obviously we work a lot of long hours, before school, after school, trying to work in groups wherever we can get them in. But there seems to be a big push going on right now for coaches to try to find balance in their lives, right? Because so many coaches, they love training, they love working with athletes, and it's really easy when they're a young guy in the field to jump in and just, either be training themselves or training athletes for 12 plus hours a day, 6 days a week, year round. But it leads to burnout, so you've been in the field for a little while now. What are you doing to try to help balance that out a little bit and try to strike that work-life balance that so many people are talking about?
Well, you're talking to the worst person in the world to talk about that. Doing a doctorate right now has prevented me from probably having a work-life balance. I hate to admit this, but I was here, last week I was here till 9 p.m. I got in at 5 on Monday. I was here till 9 p.m. I got in at 5 on Tuesday. I was here till 1 a.m. Wednesday. Just happened to be a really big homework assignment I had to get done. When your weekly assignment is a 20-page paper, and you use 24 resources or 24 sources in that takes some time. Now, what I do is I try to communicate with my wife as much as possible. We text each other all day. She works remotely from home. So, we can send videos, chats all day. I try to make sure I stay on top of that. And I'm not hesitant, as bad as some coaches say this is. I am not going to hesitate to send my wife a text during a group. If she sends me a message, I'm going to send her one back. I don't allow cell phones in the facility. I have mine and my staff has ours. It is as bad as that sounds. Guess what? I'm doing it. And I know that some people wouldn't like that and some coaches would jump my butt about it. But at this point, I've been with my wife since I was 17. We were high school sweethearts, went to the same college. She's pretty dang important to me. Not to mention I got 3 kids. I got a 1-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old. So now daughter's the hardest one. She's 1. She goes to bed at 6 or 7 every day. Sometimes she'll make it a little bit later, but those are the hard ones. So like this morning, I got to spend a little time with them actually, which, sometimes it just sucks to get out of bed. To be honest, it's hard to get out of bed. Today I was just kind of lounge around for 45 minutes. I'm like, okay, daughter comes in, says hi. I'm like, I got to get up and say hi. See them like that. You got to make the best of the moment you can, especially right now. Football season and a doctorate going together is a horrible combination while doing strength conditioning. And so right now it's pretty tough. Now, when we get to Christmas, I got to spend some time with them. I got to make sure to catch up for a little bit of lost time there. What did I do before that? Also, not a great example because I run a bunch of weird little side gigs too. By the way, that's another thing. If you're a young strength coach, find a side hustle so you can make more money because we don't make jack for money compared to what we should. So my side hustle was I actually buy and resell weightlifting shoes. So if you look behind me, these are all my personal shoes, by the way. I have a ridiculously stupid large collection of weightlifting shoes. There's probably 25 grand sitting back there of everything you can imagine from, I've got the 96 Atlanta shoes. Like, don't ask me why. But it's just kind of been one of those weird obsessions that I've had with weightlifting shoes. But I actually buy and resell them. Don't buy near as much now for myself as I buy and resell them. And then I was also doing a woodworking business where I was just doing custom stuff for people. That's something I picked up when I was younger, and I was making a good amount of money. It's actually, I put enough money in my bank account to pay for my whole doctorate. So for the year and a half before I started my doctorate, I was just doing that. And I actually got so busy, I had to stop. Like I had to just stop because I was so burned out of making stuff. I looked at my savings account, my checking account, and I was like, there's enough to pay for the doctorate there. Let's just call it while you're still sane. And, so I'm really not a great person to talk about balance, but one of those things is I do take a lot of pride in my athletes. And I always say this, and it sounds terrible, and I hate to say this because my wife might listen to this, maybe not. Like I've got my wife and I've got my 3 kids, and then I've got my 350, 400 children here too. And at the end of the day, the sad thing is I know my wife, and I hate to say this, it sounds so terrible, but I know my wife does a great job taking care of my kids. And unfortunately, not all my athletes have parents that help take care of them. So I do a lot of trying to build bridges and maybe be a parental figure of some sort to them, help guide them in that direction. That doesn't mean I don't want to spend time with my children. I try to spend as much time as possible. But I do look at my athletes. I think becoming a father was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Be a good coach is you start to understand like a lot more when you're around a kid so much. You start to see things. It's kind of the same way when you're around an athlete. You start to understand why they do things more. And you get to see them build from nothing to where they're at. My son, I've watched him, going from a baby all the way up to 9. And there's some people watching the show like, yeah, my kids are 20, I get it. But some people don't. They don't understand the growth, what happens over 5-6 years with athletes, with kids, and how they move up and grow and develop. And, we try to put a system in, my kids, I try to push them educationally more than anything, because it's never a bad thing to be smart. My 2 boys, my 5-year-old, my 9-year-old, are so high up on the education system right now. I think 9-year-old tested the 5th grade reading in 1st grade or something like that. You know, he's just smart and you just push that. But I try to push education with the athletes. I'm always saying, like, just go and get a degree. Like, go learn stuff. Like, go figure out what you really want to do. Go get educated. Don't just go get a degree. Back to life balance. So, but you know, I try to spend anything I can with my kids when I get home. Like, my oldest likes to play Fortnite, so I'll play a game of Fortnite or 2 with them, which we won last night. I played one duo, won it, by the way. I got the final shot too, and I'm not that good, so I'm going to brag on that for a minute. We try, if we get any available time, I probably honestly spoil them a little bit too much with that. When I'm home, I'm like, man, I'm going to spend some money on them. But just going to arcades and spending any quality time you can with them. You know, my daughter's a little tougher because she sleeps more. She's 1. But when it really comes down to it, you know, we live 800 miles away from family, 700 miles away, whatever it is, I don't even know. It's a long ways away from family. So it's one of those things that you got to get time with them too. It's hard for me to go and, you know, God, I don't know, last time I saw my brother and sister. But we have a Facebook Messenger group with, you know, me, my wife, my brother, his wife, my sister, and we just kind of send stupid memes, everything back and forth. But I think digital has helped a lot with keeping up with people. And that's one thing that, you know, I may not see them, but I get to hear their jokes and get to see their dumb memes and all that stuff. That does help. And same with my wife, you know, we constantly message back and forth. I probably have multiple messages from her right now for doing this, but you know, technology has been great on that way. We always video chat when I travel with football or anything like that. Video chat when I go to conferences. But yeah, technology is probably saving us a little bit, but at the same time, like, trying to be there any second I can. It's hard right now, especially doctorate football. All I want to do is go lie in bed and watch TV. But trying to force myself not to take the lazy way out, you know, find a little bit of energy and a little balance in life. So what little I can, at least.
Yeah. No, that's great. And, you know, work-life balance can mean a lot of things to different people, right? Like, you may have a lot of things that you're working on that aren't necessarily strength and conditioning, and that stuff can kind of fill you back up mentally and emotionally and kind of keep you going sometimes. So sounds like you're doing a pretty good job of keeping yourself busy and sneaking in any chance you get to interact with your family and stuff. So that's great. All right, to get things finished here, we like to throw just a few quick questions at you. First thing that comes to mind, just say it. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out thing, but we'll just kind of rapid fire a few of them at you here, and then we'll let you get out of here and get on with the rest of your day. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. So first one here, what's your favorite go-to office snack?
Ooh, go-to office snack. And rapid fire here. Gatorade protein bar.
Gatorade protein. Love those. The double chocolate crunch or whatever it is. That's my
caramel right
caramel.
Here. Oh,
absolutely love it. How about your favorite caffeine source?
Ooh, well, any caffeine source is good. Bad as it sounds, Bang Energy.
Yeah. We can preach at our athletes all we want that they need to stay away from that stuff, but man, it's the lifeblood. It's the lifeblood of strength coaches, it seems like. How about favorite hobby outside of training?
Woodworking.
Love that. I actually just got into that a little bit here over quarantine. Didn't have anything else to do, so started buying some tools and watched some YouTube videos and just diving into it a little bit. It's been great.
You got all your fingers, so you're doing a good start.
Yeah. So far, so good on that. So how about this? You got 15 minutes to train yourself, right? What are you going to do?
Snatch.
Absolutely. And last one, how about a small school coach that is doing a great job that you think deserves a shout out?
Small school, that's a good one. On the spot here. I'll do Coach Stroh at SWASU.
Okay. That's going to do it for another episode of the Big Time Strength Podcast. If you guys would like to reach out to Coach Fears and learn a little bit more about what he's doing down there at Southeastern Oklahoma, you guys can reach out to him at coach_fears on Instagram, or you can email him zfears@se.edu. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the podcast.